welcome back to Episode 2 of Comply or Die, hosted by Silo Compliance Systems. My name is Kimberly Smith, and with me is Charlotte Walton, a new compliance officer as of not even 24 hours ago.
Yeah.
And we are here today for this episode. We're going to discuss compliance-driven systems and build or buy. Yeah. And Charlotte, you used to consult in the tech world. Tell us a little bit about your experience of working for large companies, because you worked for some very large companies. Some of them were global, I believe, that were coming to you as a consultant. You were a data analytics consultant that helped put together systems that to get the metrics they needed. Tell us a little bit about that experience, without naming names, of course, and what you learned.
Yeah, I need you to write my LinkedIn because you made me sound very important there. Yeah, I helped with the design, implementation, and engineering of, the consulting firm that I was with did pretty much all like end-to-end data warehousing systems. I was more specifically on the reporting and analytics capabilities of these things. And I really loved that part. And that's, I think, kind of what kind of built the bridge between consulting and compliance for me, was being able to design reports and metrics and dashboards and all these, pretty visual things. And that's what kind of made me decide to leave consulting too, is that I could see the value and the importance and the effort that was being put into creating these data systems. And then it kind of fell flat. We were building these fantastic reports that were pulling up these really important metrics for these people. And me personally, obviously, I never got the chance to dig into those numbers. Like, why was this low? Why was this high? Why is this not consistent? As a consultant, I didn't get the opportunity to do that. And it just didn't seem like a priority for a lot of people to actually just really do something about those metrics. And maybe they were. Maybe that just kind of wasn't apparent to me. But it was, these were crucial numbers. They were crucial metrics. And I definitely felt very lucky to have a hand in that, to be part of it. Because I just thought it was fascinating. I thought it was really interesting.
Right. And they would have to be crucial numbers if the companies are spending, in some cases, money, hundreds of thousands of dollars
on these things,
How often, when you guys would give an estimate, how often did the budget get blown out of the water?
Almost every time.
Almost every time.
Or it wasn't necessarily that the budget would get blown, or it had to put a change order in or something, but it was that we didn't always deliver 100%. And whether sometimes it was
for the budget that was pre-approved
for the allotted hours that we had. Yeah. And sometimes it was just things, kind of engineering things where, we didn't realize that actually this wasn't possible, or we kind of had to change directions, and that's just part of the consulting world. Is clients know what their problem is, and they think they know what their solution is. And then we come in where we don't know what the problem is, and we also think we know what the solution is. And so there's always just kind of like a misalignment with those things. And because it's, we were doing fairly short-term projects, we would only be there, 9 times out of 10 for a couple of months, unless we were doing, multiple projects
for them. And I guess having built Silo myself, so for those who are listening in, so I am the founder of Silo Compliance Systems. It is a compliance-centric solution for small to medium-sized businesses. I come from the compliance background, not a tech background, and I had to learn the hard and expensive way. Sorry, shareholder.
Yeah,
who invested.
Single shareholder.
sorry to my investor, but he was very patient, and we learned some very expensive lessons early on in our days, and that is technology. Generally, if you're coming from from a non-tech background and you're trying to tell a software developer what you need and what you want, it's very difficult to speak their language.
Oh yeah.
And I can remember, and you may even remember this, I can remember saying, this is just drawing it out, colored pencils. I had colored pencils, and I was drawing out what I wanted the screen to do. And giving that piece of paper or series of papers and saying, look, this is just what I need it to do. And so I was kind of seeing it more from what I now know is the user interface side, versus the technical side, and of course, and then having to explain and learn whenever they were saying, okay, so you need this to do this, and it was so detail oriented.
And it took us 10 years to get to the UI UX optimization side of things. So,
Yes, absolutely. And so when people are looking at compliance systems and trying to decide, do we build or buy? Well, first of all, you're probably going to have to be a pretty big company if you're going to have the budget to build your own system. Okay, so I think that's my number one piece of advice is first consider what kind of money you have. Because if you're not willing to spend a few $100,000 on a system, you're going to end up with a pretty, excuse my language, crap system.
Yeah.
And but so if you're a smaller firm, you're going to end up having to buy. There's just no there's no easy answer.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's nothing wrong with
when
that.
you're buying a compliance-centric solution. And we can take a moment to kind of define that. You know, we see Silo as a compliance-centric solution because you're a compliance officer.
Well, and that's what it's built to. It's built to manage
for the compliance function.
The AML compliance workflow and due diligence and risk assessments. But there's also very good reasons if you do have the budget and the skill sets to build your own, and that would be for the larger firms who have a lot of legacy systems with legacy. Because one of the things you also have to think about when you're looking at to procure any kind of system is where will you have some redundancies? Where is it going to bring in your workflow efficiencies? And what value is it going to bring to the company? Obviously,
and that was something that we had to do a lot of. We had a lot of projects at the very first phase was figuring out those external data sources and those legacy systems. You know, I worked on a specific like legacy data migration project where it was like this massive, lift and shift is what we called it, because one of the systems was being sunsetted and it had a really expensive license fee. And that's the thing is that when you decide to go into these, contracts, if you're going to do, and this is a problem that you're going to encounter either way, if you build, you're going to have to maintain it. And that was something that we had to struggle with the end of our phases, was the change management, handing it back, producing the documentation, and not necessarily like saying, oh, this is a requirement, but you need a data engineer. For the systems that we were building, you need a data engineer to maintain and update and just, oversee that system.
right.
You need not necessarily an in-house team. You don't need a whole, slew of engineers. You need to pay their salaries or anything, but you need someone to supervise these processes. You need to supervise it, if something breaks or if something needs to be updated or you need to add a new field, add a new report. And then if you buy, what happens when that software is bought out by another company?
Absolutely.
We're dealing with that with our CRM system.
Right.
What happens when they get sunsetted?
Right.
So
if you are looking to buy and you find a solution that you think fits your needs, and I guess I should kind of go back and say, one of the things you do need to identify is what are you needing a system for?
Collect those requirements.
Exactly. Assess, scope out those requirements. And whenever, of course, you do your shopping, get your demos from various providers. But you're also going to be looking into like your existing systems, what's in place, where are your workflow redundancies, because there's always like, for instance, your marketing or CRM systems will have some of the same data that your compliance system will have. And accounting systems or billing systems, same thing. They'll have information about your clients. So there's always going to be redundancies. But you just need to figure out, can the systems talk to each other? And some people call that integration or API.
And should they? For your security purposes and
yes.
for your
you do need to think about that because compliance systems will have a lot of personal identifying information, which is protected, should be very protected. And so you do need to think about, do we need these things all just kind of talking to each other? Otherwise you could have some cybersecurity risks. And so you do need to get some very specialized consultants to come in and help you sometimes figure that out. Because you might not be able to identify all these risks right away. You don't know what you don't know until you start diving in.
And the answer is not to put your head in the sand either. I think that's kind of the obstacle that a lot of people are facing right now is they go like, well, we don't necessarily have $100, $200, grand, $500,000 to drop on a expensive enterprise system. It's fully integrated. It captures all these things, screening solution. And I don't have a team to maintain it. And I don't have consultants that are going to help me figure out, I don't have the time, money, or resources to do this. Therefore, I will stick with my Excel and my manual processes.
Yeah.
That we're getting to the edge on that. We're getting to the brink where that's no longer acceptable.
It's been no longer acceptable for some years now.
Yeah.
But people have been trying to
holding on to
that. Probably mostly for budget reasons. I mean, I get that, or because it was not a priority. But now it is getting to the point. It's like if you're going to stay in business, you've got to have a system that is managing your compliance. Because again, kind of what we were talking about in episode 1, compliance is now a core function of a business. Yeah. It is no longer just an expense of doing business. It is a core process that needs to have some management metrics that management are seeing on a regular basis, and can help with the whole compliance. I think one of the things that I really also wanted to point out too was when you are looking at a system to buy, and this is what because I started Silo about 10 years ago, and I didn't realize this. Again, I'm not an entrepreneur really. I guess I am an entrepreneur, but I didn't mean
not
to
by
be.
choice. Yeah.
that was not my goal in life.
Yeah.
But when you're looking at these tech startups, because there are so many great technologies out there. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm so excited. I think the next compliance professionals that are coming into the world, you're going to have a lot more tools than we ever did in my career. And that's good and that's bad, okay? Because you could go out and you could spend money on a new system, and it could work great for a couple of years, but if they are not constantly developing it, it's going to be out of date in a few years' time.
And not long.
Everything, like we're part of this, accelerator program, and they don't have us do our long-term goals are 3 years.
Yeah.
Now, and for a tech company, because everything changes so fast. They say 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, but there's no point in trying to forecast past that.
And you can't. Exactly. There's no point trying to forecast. So don't think you're going to get a system that's going to last 10 years, unless that system is being constantly updated, continuously updated, and continuously developed, which is what we do because we recognize that. Yeah. So you have that risk. That's kind of the questions you should be asking yourself when you are looking at a system. The other question I think people should be asking is how well funded they are, and that's hard for me to say. Yeah. As a startup of a tech company, people were asking us that question whenever we were trying to get our first customers, and it was hard to say, well, we're a startup. Yeah. Because so your anybody who is our early adopters are very well cared for because they took a risk for us, and we recognize that. And so we take very good care of our early adopters. So if you are the first customer, you may just be aware you might be getting a great deal, but at the same time that company could go down. Or it could get bought out. And sometimes when a company is bought out, it's not necessarily a good thing. Yeah. So we've experienced this with our own CRM system where they got bought out, and for about a year there, we
thought about leaving.
Yeah. It was just buggy. Yeah. Half the time it didn't work. I was having more support issues. But the new owners I do recommend give it a year if you can, because the new owners have seemed to started to put some money into it. Yeah. It's been working fine.
Yeah, and we were actually early adopters of them.
We were early adopters of that particular solution. Which
it's a two-way relationship. It's a give and take, and that's true of any relationship, especially with technology. As everything keeps changing, you have to. That's something that we're kind of working on right now with our current user base, is desperately getting feedback pulled out of them. Because we're kind of in that inflection point of it's like, okay, we need to really highlight and pinpoint the areas that we need to be developing before everyone else does.
Exactly.
What were the problems that they were having yesterday so that we can get it out by this afternoon?
Yeah, no, we're not quite that fast.
Yeah.
Wish
One
we
day.
could be one
Yeah.
day. Yeah. But yeah, no, it is that is. So that's another thing people should be looking for is what kind of relationship they're going to have, because it is, as you mentioned, it is definitely a relationship. It is not a you buy it and you never hear from them again.
Yeah.
With
That
technology.
should never be the case. With any vendor, any technology provider, and that goes both ways. That's something that we had a problem with some of our earliest adopters, is that the good ones were ones that were constantly giving us feedback, and they were always talking to us, and they were asking about things, and they were telling us about their experience. And then the ones that didn't have a good experience, again, both ways, were the ones that didn't reach out. We didn't hear from them. They, maybe they had like some support tickets and stuff. But ultimately, they decided to leave.
Yeah. Well, we don't have. I mean, we still have some customers who I haven't heard from in 4 years,
Yeah.
but they pay our invoices
Yeah.
each year, so I guess they're happy.
Yeah.
But that's not good enough for me. I want to know
that you're using it too.
that are they using? Well, of course they're using it if they're
Yeah.
paying for it. I hope
Yeah.
they are at least.
Well, yeah.
But
how would we know?
yeah, how would I know if I don't hear from them? So you will have to have a good relationship. I mean, I hope. I'm pretty proud of the fact that our users know us by our first names.
Yeah.
And know this, even though they're sending emails like to support at,
Yeah.
that they know who's behind. They
Who
know
is
the first
support at.
names of,
Yeah.
and we do make a point of going out and traveling to our
seeing
people
them
and seeing them in person and
face to
introducing
face,
ourselves. And we do that for lots of reasons. A, it's just building the relationship, and two, it's also they really do need to trust us, because our solution is holding their clients' personal data, and we also work with another vendor to make sure that everything's cyber secure. Where it's penetration testing. So when you are looking to buy compliance systems, again, these are some of the questions you need to ask. Another risk you will face with any kind of vendor is if they get bought out and cannibalized. And I had never even heard of that term
Until it almost happened to us.
until it almost happened to us. And it was one of those situations where, so what's happening is some of the bigger companies will buy their competitors. And when they buy the competitors, it almost sounds like a merger or an acquisition, but really what they're doing is they're just cannibalizing. They're just bringing the staff on board to be employees of the bigger company, and then they're taking the technology
Scrapping it.
and then they're scrapping it,
Yeah.
and then they're just moving those users that were using that into a new one. And if as a user you're forced into that relationship, and that might not be what you want. So again, that is a risk, and again, I didn't realize that's what happened. So I was a bit naive there.
Well, and then so to kind of off that, this I wouldn't necessarily call it a trend, but the kind of Silicon Valley tech bro corporate culture, I guess, those kind of technology trends, they seem to be creeping into specifically compliance, reg tech, the regulatory obligations.
Well,
What are you witnessing there?
It's such a huge market.
Yeah.
There's so many people who are looking. There's so many AML regulated businesses all over the world,
And they have to.
and so they have to. And they're realizing that they have to get a system. So the tech companies are saying, "Hey, this is a new opportunity. We're a tech company. We can go build a compliance system, and we'll start selling it."
Do you see that as predatory or opportunistic, or
It's opportunistic, of course. It's what businesses do.
Yeah.
They look for new markets. Can they do it? Of course, if they've got tons of money, I'm sure they're going to be able to hire some really good compliance people to tell them how to build it. Hopefully, that's what they're doing.
Hopefully.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
that's probably not what they're
Exactly.
doing. And I think this is the reason why we're still in business.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, exactly. Somehow,
Despite the odds.
is because I understood the workflow and I understood the nuances of AML compliance and the frustrations, and that's where our system is does very well. Is because, as some people say, they go, "Oh, you thought of everything."
Yeah,
That's
compliance
like, well,
centric.
that's because
Yeah.
I had to, because that's what I job. This is my job.
Yeah, it was kind of led by that guiding star was your direct experiences, and then after as the years passed by, after you had kind of left the compliance role, it was building the relationships and building the community with other compliance officers around the world, whether they were users or not, and kind of understanding their workflow
Their
and their
pain,
and their pain points.
Yeah.
That was a huge thing for us.
No, absolutely. So again, just going back to the build or buy.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if you got the budget and yes, you can build and integrate with all your legacy systems, but you do need to think about the security of your client data, because anytime you integrate with another system, that's just basically opening up a portal of risk for cyber threats. The other thing too is you're going to have a really good team on your working group to provide the details. And as your experience was, you would start on a project and then the scope, you said,
Scope
would
creep was
change.
massive.
A scope creep?
Yeah.
Creep?
Creep.
Okay.
Where it was on the last project I worked on, or one of the last, it was particularly bad. I think like the number of ticket items where they would like regress things doubled over the course of about 4 months. But of course the budget didn't change. Number of hours didn't change. We were just kind of expected to get twice as much done.
Twice as much done for the same budget.
Which of course, and then what did we deliver? We delivered about half of what they'd originally asked for, and then half of the new things. So no one was completely 100% happy on both sides.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And again, I won't say too much on it because I'm no longer there and I haven't been for a while. But I think that's kind of the frustration with these when you kind of introduce so many parties into it, and they're all kind of trying to get to a goal, but it's really the blind leading the blind.
And is it too many goals that they're trying? Too many final destinations that they're trying to get to? Is that the problem?
I think it's too many final destinations, too many boxes to check, too many issues to worry about.
Is it too many cooks in the kitchen?
I mean, it's all of the above, and it's not enough thoughtfulness and intention at the very beginning, because like, again, I don't want to disparage my peers or anything, but like that when it comes down to it, especially in consulting, is you want to get that contract signed, right? Mm-hmm. You want to get the signature on the dotted line and you want to get the check in the bank. And again, I think this is where this has always been a guiding principle for us. And I think what has set us apart for the 10 years that we've been doing this, it was about the people. It has always been. Yeah. Always will be. It was about so many conversations that we'd have, is this product even right for you? And sometimes that answer was no. Mm-hmm. Let's have a lot of long, in-depth conversations about what you're doing currently and where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And I think what has really helped us is the small and kind of now mid-sized firms where there weren't too many cooks in the kitchen. We could be fairly direct and we could be fairly one-on-one. And I think that's kind of part of the problem that I had witnessed earlier was
in the consulting
side. Is that there wasn't enough let's sit down, let's look people in the eye and say, how can I help you? Don't tell me what you want. Tell me what your problem is. And then let's come up with a solution together.
Yes.
Because neither of us know what that's going to look like. I can't pitch you something because I think I know it all technology-wise because I don't know your business. And they don't know the technology side of things.
Yeah.
Or maybe they think they do.
And that, of course, that is absolutely true in the compliance world. They know we need to do this, this, and this, but they might not know all the tools that are available to them. Yeah. And of course, I get the calls where well, it must integrate with this system, with this other system that we use as well. And that could be a whole separate podcast is integrations. Yeah. Is because that brings up a whole new set of challenges and problems and costs, is any kind of API integrations. We're going through that ourselves right now, where we're having to update an API, and it's taking much longer. And we were in that... the
accelerator meeting?
We were in the accelerator, and a guy came in a bit late. He's like, I got this API. And, of course, you and I just crack up laughing.
The entire hour half, there was 3 of us. All of us had API issues that week.
Yeah, and it was so technology is not always 100% the solution. Yeah. And what it does solve, if anybody takes anything away from this conversation, just remember, technology can solve a lot of problems, but it's just going to bring a few new ones. Yeah. And you need to be prepared for managing those new problems.
The new opportunities and the new problems.
Yeah. It's going to be opportunities and risks that you need to think about. So really prepare yourself. Get consultants, ask a lot of questions, and ask them again
and
again. So I've noticed this whenever we're looking at technologies to integrate into our system, and sometimes I'll get 2-3 demos from the same company, which means I sometimes get 2 or 3 demos from different people on the same product, and it's almost like being told a different story.
Yeah.
And now that's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that these technologies were not good. They were very good, but sometimes I got just a little bit more information because somebody said it a little bit differently, and I don't want to go into too much detail. But it was you don't hesitate to ask for repeat demos. Don't hesitate to ask, and if it is a SaaS system, don't hesitate to ask for trial periods or mock systems so you can push the buttons yourself. Make sure it works for you. It's something that we're always looking to do. Is we want to reduce the risk of making the decision.
Right. And
so we will give people these trial systems and access to a mock system, and as many demos as they need half the time. So you do need to kind of take your time, really scope out what you want the system to do for you, what you need it to do. And you may or may not find a solution that fits 100% of those, but then have I love working with people who have the must-haves and would like be nice-to-haves.
Yeah.
Do you ever have that?
Yeah. The Moscow list that I think that...
what do you call it?
Must, should, could, would.
Must, should, could, would.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And that's kind of like the overall message, if we could scream it from the mountaintops. That's, to both the vendors, the sellers of the SaaS products, and also the buyers. You can say no. You don't have to buy that system. If you don't feel like it's a right fit, it's a two-way street. It's a relationship of trust. On one hand, like, don't push a product, like, be ethical. Don't push a product onto a person that, it's not a right fit. Encourage them to ask questions. Encourage them. They're scared. Compliance is not only a purchase is a risk, but this is a purchase of something that's supposed to manage even more risk.
Exactly. And sometimes it's a career on their line because they might have to go to their upper management and say,
we need this.
I really like this system. This is the one I recommend that we get. Can I have 15 grand or 20 grand to get it?
Yeah.
And then if it turns out to be an absolute failure, it looks bad on their career. So yes, we need to, as vendors of these SaaS products, our compliance-driven products, we need to make sure that we're helping them make the right decision as well. So I think that's enough for this particular conversation. There's lots of things to think about when you are shopping. Read up, get some advice. Window shop, get demos again, and explore the topics and explore. Like I said, you're gonna have to talk to your internal IT guys as well. It's like what other systems are in being used that are not necessarily being used by the compliance driven. But that's the one piece of advice I think. And what would be your takeaway advice?
I mean, I would say don't be afraid, but obviously I know that it's a massive weight, right? It's a massive weight, and it's something that you cannot avoid. We're at the point now where if you're not ahead of the game, you are behind. There is no longer, like, you're not keeping pace at that point. And that's okay. It's okay to acknowledge that. Because, like, the prevalence of this massive boom in reg tech industry is a good thing, right? It's great to have just an incredible amount of choice. And definitely go with something that feels right. Because compliance is very instinct and human-based, if your instincts are off about a vendor or about a product, or you don't see it fitting quite right within your function or your company, firm, whatever it is, because that's another thing, not all regulated firms are the same. The industry is very widely, and no two law firms, banks, fiduciary services are the same. Go with something that feels right, and don't be afraid to make that choice, because you will be better off for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the only piece of advice I have is again, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's out there until you start looking and seeing and testing, pushing the buttons yourself. So my big thing is feel free to ask for trial versions. And I'm not saying that's easy, because it costs us to give somebody a free trial for 30 days. We actually, not lose money. It costs us money to set it up for you, to give you that trial. Whether it's, sometime, but it's usually for like 30 days. So and to respect that, to respect any company who is giving you that option and taking a hit on that cost, make sure you do test it. The
Yeah.
number of times have I had, because we do have what we call mock systems that we give people access to, and the number of times we have put somebody on a mock system, we said, okay, you can have it for a week to really push the buttons, only to be told later, oh, we never had time.
Yeah.
You know, well, I could have had somebody else
Yeah.
on that mock system, you know, testing it. So make sure you are respectful of their time and expense that they're giving you. So please
It is for your benefit.
it's
too.
your for benefit. And if you're not making the time, if you are already so overwhelmed, how are you going to do the data migration? How are you
Yeah.
going to learn the new system? If you can't take just a few hours of your day to go spend that time on that mock system or that trial system you've been given, then you're
There's
in no
something
position to
seriously
go
wrong.
go implementing a new system completely.
There's
So you've
something
got to
bigger.
think about that too.
Yeah.
So yes, so do test and you know, question and dig and like so. And I think for the next one episode, we'll probably talk a little bit more about the compliance community and training. And some of the options that are out there, as well as one of the things that I also want to mention as well is that risk-based approach, and how that is needed in a compliance system, is the ability to apply your risk-based approach.
Yeah.
And until next time, thank you very much for joining us for Comply or Die.
Thank you.
Thank you.